they spent the majority of their career with a team prior to the Yankees. As someone who grew up and is still a diehard New York Yankee fan, there's certain players that even if they were Boston Red Sox prior, I remember them as Yankees. Johnny Damon's one of them, and my next guest we'll introduce momentarily is also one of them too. We won't waste too much time getting into it. All I'll say is check out the previous episode, which was also pre-recorded as we continue putting shows in the archive. That one was with Captain Dave Riley, longtime member of the NYPD Emergency Service Unit, enjoyed a 22-year career in the New York City Police Department. Good going through his career and the different facets of working in a unit like ESU, which, as most of you know, half SWAT, half rescue. Like we said, won't waste too much time. Don't want to keep my guests waiting. So we'll run the ad for retired NYPD Detective Billy Ryan and, of course, his PI firm, the Ryan Investigative Group. The Mike the New Haven podcast is proudly sponsored and supported by the Ryan Investigative Group. If you need an elite PI, look no further than the elite Ryan Investigative Group, which is run by retired NYPD Detective Bill Ryan, a 20-year veteran of the department who served the majority of his career in the Detective Bureau, most notably in the Arson and Explosion Squad. So if you need a PI to handle anything from fraud, legal services, and anything else that you might require, contact Bill at 347-417-1610. Again, 347-417-1610. Reach him at his website or the email that you see here. Again, if you need a PI, look no further than Bill Ryan and the Ryan Investigative Group, a proud supporter and sponsor of the Mike to New Haven podcast. All right, like I said, won't keep him waiting. My next guest is widely regarded as one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He's a 7-time Cy Young Award winner, an 11-time All-Star, 1986 American League MVP, and 2-time World Series champion, winning in 1999 and 2000 with the New York Yankees. And throughout his 23-year career, he played in 6 World Series, respectively, which we'll talk about with him. Doesn't need much of an introduction. The Rocket, Roger Clemens, joins us now on the Mike to New Haven podcast. Roger, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's awesome. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, I appreciate you making the time. We know you're busy, so we'll get right into it. I mean, most people would associate you with Texas, and being a Texan, you identify as a proud Texan. But before that, you spent your early years in Ohio. So tell me about growing up there and learning to love baseball.
Yeah, great. I mean, I obviously love to speak to that. I was born in Ohio. A lot of family in that area, Cookeville, Tennessee area. We always had a family reunion down there. Backstory: my pops passed away when I was 9, so I was raised by 2 strong-willed women, my mother and my grandmother, and they were the best. I mean, that's I got my work ethic from my mom. My oldest brother got stationed at Fort Hood. So my mom picked up 6 of us, got us down to Texas, and the rest is history, man. She put me in a school district where there was a great baseball program. My high school coach ended up being like a father figure to me, but make no mistake about it, my mom. I kind of get I get a little, I don't say I get upset. I just had to correct people that always say, you $1 million ball players, or you guys silver spoon in your mouth, whatever. I said, hold up a second. I said, my mom worked 3 jobs, so I could have a sweet glove and a new pair of cleats every season, it seemed like, and I helped her stock coolers in the afternoon, and then we cleaned office buildings at night. But she was a worker. My grandmother said it best. She said, if you're going to be a ditch digger, you be the best damn ditch digger in the country. And just great, strong-willed women. And my mom always taught me, even when I was in my playing days, my 24 years of majors, ever who, city you're representing on your chest, you do it to the fullest. And so just great work ethics. Had 3 wonderful coaches in college. My high school coach was awesome. All 3 of my coaches, Coach Charlie Mariano, my high school coach. I went to San Jack my freshman year as a junior college. Had a baseball man there named Wayne Graham, and he went on to take Rice University to the national championship. And then I played at the time for the winningest coach, Coach Cliff Guston at the University of Texas. And all 3 men were great baseball men, great teachers of the game of baseball, but also great teachers of the game of life, stuff that I was able to carry with me, not only high school, University of Texas, and on to the pros, to the majors. So I was pretty lucky in that sense.
You get to the Red Sox, of course, in 1984, and everybody remembers their first big league start, whether it be as a batter, of course, or in your case, as a starting pitcher. This is a Red Sox team that had some up and down years in the 70s, and there was a lot of pressure on you at that time as a prize draft pick. What do you remember most about that debut?
I remember it was in Cleveland, the Mistake by the Lake, as they called it. There was about 5,000 people. It was freezing cold. Let's see. I obviously remember my first batter I ever faced professionally was Brett Butler, a little small left-handed leadoff hitter. I walked him on 4 straight pitches, and my first out was recorded. I picked him off first base. He was trying to steal, and I picked him off first. So that's how I recorded my first out. I think my first big league strikeout was Mike Hargrove. He ended up being a manager later on. And so yeah, it was really cool. I mean, winning the national championship at Texas, beating Alabama, and then getting drafted by the Red Sox. The only really team that I heard that if I was available at the time were the Los Angeles Dodgers were going to select me, and they had to pick right behind the Red Sox. So the Red Sox took me. I remember going to Fenway for the first time. I think it was pre-cell phones. So I was in the back of a taxi, had my head down in a paper most of the way from the airport to the stadium. And when the cab driver stopped, I looked out the window. He goes, "Here you go, kid." And he had no clue who I was. And, I was new to everything and just barely off the campus, drafted. And I look out the window of the cab, and I see nothing but a brick building. It looked like a warehouse. I said, "Hey, Mr. Cabby, I'm a professional ball player. I'm going to a stadium called Fenway Park." And he goes, "This is it, kid. Get your butt out of my car." and I got out, and I saw the brick, and then I saw the lights, and the team brought me into the stadium, saw the big green monster. And like I said, I love history, and I was fortunate to play in for two historic teams.
Absolutely. As we'll talk about as this interview progresses, we're talking with Roger Clemens here in the Mike to New Haven podcast. Now, 1986 is interesting because that's when you said you went from a thrower to a pitcher, and you credit that to Tom Seaver. Now, just to read the audience your numbers that year: 24 wins, 4 losses, 2.48 ERA. That's your first Cy Young. You won your second again a year later. But just to focus on Seaver, another all-time great, someone with so much pedigree behind him. He spent a partial season with you guys in 86, but that paved the way for what you would go on to achieve. What do you recall most from learning about him, not only about pitching, but just about, as you said, life?
Yeah, another wonderful question. I mean, what a treat and luxury it is for me as a young player to have, Tom Seaver. Tom Terrific gets traded to us, and he got hurt. So he wasn't able to be in the playoffs that year with us. But yeah, he was. I kept my mouth shut and did a lot of listening. I mean, I consider Tom Seaver the ultimate power pitcher. I always had great mechanics. Even when I was in high school, not throwing very hard. I was probably better defensive end than I was pitcher, first baseman, but I threw strikes, and that's why I got to pitch. And then I think it was my freshman year in college, I grew. At Texas, we didn't have a lifting program, so we basically lifted with the football team. So that I gained leg strength from that. My fastball jumped to mid-90s to upper 90s. And then, like you said, had a wonderful pitching coach named Bill Fisher. Fish, to this day, his big stickler was walking guys. And to this day, Bill Fisher still holds the major league record. I believe it's 91 innings without walking a guy.
Wow.
And Greg Maddox said he was going to beat it one year. I think Doggy got to about 80 something. Then he ended up walking a guy. But Fish had Tom Seaver in Cincinnati. And so when we traded for him, got him, man, it was just, man, I was like a sponge. I was sitting next to him when I could and listen to him. But again, the ultimate power pitcher, you're dead on.
Absolutely. And again, a great career in his own right, and definitely revered in New York for what he accomplished primarily with the Mets. 86, is a great taste in both success and heartbreak, especially early in your career as an athlete. You had a lot of success in college. Here, again, a successful year. You get to the World Series. Everyone knows what happens in Game 6 and Game 7. What did that teach you early on about how to handle adversity as an athlete? How did it really fuel your drive to win going forward?
Yeah, I think I was built for winning at the University of Texas. We had a slogan at Texas: we don't rebuild, we reload. And winning the national championship, I think my first couple of years in the league, it was about changing the dynamics of my family's life. And I knew I was going to be able to make some money, pay off my mom's townhome, get her a new car. Then after that, it was about winning championships again. Everything else will take care of itself. So I had that mindset. I think Bruce Hurst, left-handed pitcher with me in Boston, Hursty said it best. He actually, after I struck out 20 for the first time, he gave me my nickname, the Rocket. And he also told me that night, he says 2 things: your life just changed. Our lives as a team just changed. And he goes, you got to understand, before you got here, pitching in Boston was a second-class citizen. And it was all hit. So it was a wonderful season. I mean, obviously we didn't win. It was a heartbreak. I think if you look at the playoff there, you gotta understand, you're talking about, I was in 6 World Series. 2 of them were extremely emotional. Of course, I was supposed to pitch on 9/11 with the Yankees, but regress back to '86. The week before in the playoffs, we were one strike away from getting eliminated by the California Angels. As you asked the question, I still can visualize in my mind looking across the field with one strike to go, and I see Reggie Jackson with his arm around Gene Mock, the manager, getting ready to celebrate. Of course, Dave Henderson, my teammate, hit the big home run, and we went on when I pitched a Game 7 to get us into the World Series against the Mets. And then, like I said, a week later, we're one strike away on about 5 hitters to clinching that. I remember the scoreboard accidentally there at Shea Stadium. It flashed real quick. Congratulations to the world champion Boston Red Sox. I had gone in the 8th inning of that Game 6 I got done ice and I was changing shirts, and they already had the champagne there opened up. They had the World Series on the TV platform, the plastic in front of the lockers ready to go. So I was like, I've never seen the World Series trophy, and there it was sitting right there. So we all know what happened. They talk about the play with Billy Buck. I tell people, you guys have no idea. We would not be in the position we were in without Billy Buckner. He basically had bone rubbing on bone on his ankles. He was wearing, if you can visualize, high top cleats. Well, like Johnny Unitas, back in the day, he's the only one wearing high top cleats. So, but yeah, I mean, it was he worked his butt off to be out there for us. But it was a good learning experience. I thought it was going to be a way of life that we're going to be in the playoffs a lot.
Yeah, and it's amazing, not to jump ahead, but life comes full circle. You went from being on the losing end in Shea Stadium in '86, 14 years later on the winning end in 2000, as we'll get to. So there was a happy ending in that front.
You bet.
But I will say this: division races, for those of you who are younger in terms of following baseball, back then had a lot more importance to them because there was no division series. You had years, especially for the Yankees in the '80s with Donnie Mattingly and Ricky Henderson, they'd win 97, 98 games. Today, that gets you at least a wild card. Back then, if you didn't win your division, you went home. So 100%. It made winning the division in '88 and '90 a lot sweeter, and '95 as well, because that was the ultimate incentive. You were into the ALCS. And even though you guys came up short against Oakland in those 2 years, Oakland, of course, were loaded in those days. Again, more learning, more experience, and adding more to your drive, I imagine.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, it was, just great. Again, it was all about winning. When you play baseball in the East, and the tradition with the Red Sox Yankee, which I still considered, the biggest rivalry in sports. Lakers Celtics are right there, but I still think Yankee Red Sox are one of the top rivalry.
Well, of course. Fast forward to 1996, you reached the end of your tenure in Boston. A lot was made about that in the press that year, and you ended up with the Toronto Blue Jays for a couple of years. People forget about that because, of course, what would come with the Yankees. But you had 2 great years there. 97, 98, you win the Cy Young both years. You had a triumphant return to Boston. So even though the Blue Jays weren't exactly a contender at that time, they did win 88 games in 98. They weren't a championship contender, though, quite yet. Think about the guys you played with for a little while. Carlos Delgado was on the come up at the time. Sean Green was on the come up at the time. So what did you enjoy, or what was unique about getting to play with these guys and getting to play in Canada?
Yeah, so just for the record, as you guys know too, it was made like that. I left Boston. I wanted to finish my career in Boston.
Yeah,
and I thought it was going to be about 4 more years. And they got a new GM. Guy came in, wished me well in the twilight of my career. Thank goodness it was a long twilight. And but you're right. So I hit it off with Mr. Beeston. He was the team president at the time, and Beastie came here to Houston, and basically and you got to, let me regress again. You got to understand the Yankees. When I was with the Red Sox, '80s, late '80s, maybe early '90s, the Yankees weren't very good. They had Donnie Ballgame and a few, and so they weren't. The rivalry really wasn't there. The team that we knocked heads with were the Blue Jays. Late '80s, early '90s, they won a couple championships. Beeston, Paul Beeston came down here and he said, I'd like for you to come pitch. We're going to rebuild the team. We're going to go back to those championship ways. So I had a 4-year deal. Beastie left to go to the commissioner's office, kind of changed the whole complex of my contract. And then once they knew that something was going to happen, I was going to get possibly traded. Mr. Steinbrenner started. He actually came to my house twice. And once I said, yeah, I've been trying to get you forever. You want to be a Yankee or don't you? But again, the players, I had some great young guys pitching with me on the pitching staff in Toronto, some great young players. It was a lot of fun, man. We got after it. Charlie O'Brien caught me. I think, I still stay in contact with a lot of my catchers. They're my bread and butter. Those guys paid attention to detail because I called about 90, 95% of my game from the mound. So I was pitch comm before pitch comm. And these guys had to pay attention because I was doing a lot of it with my eyes, calling the pitches with my eyes. And Charlie O'Brien I think Charlie put a book out, Cy Young Catcher. I think he caught 11 seasons where the guy he caught won the Cy Young. And just had tremendous hands, quiet hands, could frame the ball beautifully. And then, like I said, Mr. Steinbrenner came calling, and they said, we got to do this trade, and we got to do it quick. So that's kind of how that all went to the next gear.
And this is what I wanted to ask you about, especially growing up as a Yankee fan. So let's set the context. Spring of 1999, the Yankees aren't just coming off a championship where they swept the Padres. They're coming off arguably the greatest season in the history of the sport. 114 regular season wins, add in 11 during the postseason. 125 and 50 was their record combining the playoffs. And on top of that, David Wells was great for them that year. He threw a perfect game for them that year. And you get traded for him. He was a fan favorite. So people know your pedigree. People know what you've accomplished at this point, but it's still a lot of pressure. So just tell me about this is a two-part question. One, the moment you found out the trade was official and that you were going to be a Yankee. And two, just the pressure you had internally to really prove to the New York fans that you belonged here.
Yeah, I mean, I was always, you always are trying to perform at a high level. So it was to put the pinstripes on. It wasn't any different than, being in Boston or playing at Texas. I mean, again, you're in situations where you get to Omaha and win the College World Series, or it's an off year. Same thing with Boston, but even I will give you that. It's Derek Jeter and I, we both preached it. If you get to the World Series and lose, it's I'm going to go down and do some work with the Yankees this spring, and that's the first thing I'm going to say. Hopefully, you guys remember what happened last year. I hope that still sticks with you to go that far, put all that time and work in, and then come up short. So that's what that was all about. And I had great teammates. I had great pitching mates, and we just kind of fed off each other as we got going. And I tease people, but it holds true, guys. When I'm out in these celebrity golf events or whatever, and everybody's like, hey, he's got a pressure putt, or pitching for the Yankees. There's all kind of pressure in this game. Pitching game 1 of the World Series, I pitched a bunch of game 7s. The pressure. I go, guys, let me tell you about pressure with my 4 boys when they were little. I would come home on an off day in the Major League Baseball season, and you go to dad's pitch, and you get 6 pitches to try, and you're the dad or the coach's pitch, the guy that's pitching is really dictating the game. You have to hit the kid's bat for them to hit it and run and score. And you only get 6 pitches. On the 6th pitch, the kid strikes out, or he gets a hit or whatever. I can't tell you how many times you talk about pressure. I'm stepping and trying to throw a ball 30 miles an hour and hit this little guy's bat so he doesn't start crying. I don't want to strike out 12-year-olds. And I'm trying to hit his bat. And on the last pitch that I know I've got to hit his bat, right before I throw it, one of the moms are in the stands going, Jesus, you're a professional. Throw my kid a strike. Gee, that is pressure. That pitching game 7 for the Yankees in the World Series, that's pressure. So let me just tell you, and your viewers and the dads that know that and what I just said, they know. I guarantee you.
Oh, of course, especially with the amount of cops and firemen we have on this podcast.
Oh, I'll guarantee you they know what it's like to do dad's pitch.
Yeah, they definitely know that feeling for sure. 99, that first year, you go through the regular season, 14-10 record that year. Playoffs, you pitch great against Texas. You finish off the Rangers in Game 3. Yankees win the ALCS over Boston in 5 games. You get to the World Series. And Game 4, heading into that start, it's on YouTube in its entirety. MLB Classics uploaded. You rubbed your fingers on the Babes plaque. You go out there. You give them 7 1/3, or I think it was 7 2/3 of 1-run ball. A tremendous effort by you. Clinched the championship that night. You leave to a standing ovation. When Chad Curtis caught Keith Lockhart's final out, and you realize that was the one thing that was missing to that point in your career, the World Series ring. You're finally a World Series champion. Yeah. Take me through those emotions as you're running on the field to celebrate.
Yeah, you're bringing me back to memory lane here, trying to remember some of this stuff. But I think I said it best when and it's kind of strange saying it now because the guys are only going 4 and 5 innings, these starters. But we're trying to finish what we start. But as long as I can eat innings after the 7th inning, maybe eat 1 or 2 in the 8th. I've got the best closer in the history of in the history of the game out there warming up, Mariano Rivera. So if I can get the ball to Mo, and I always told people there's 2 things. They always say there's 2 things for sure in this world: death and taxes. Mm-hmm. You can add a 3rd one there, Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
And I mean, the dude is he's got the coolest jog in from the outfield. You know, he's got his glove in his other hand. He's got the coolest jog there is. You're right. I always kept Babe Ruth's monument nice and shiny with my sweat on his forehead. And yeah, I just remember watching Mo out there and thinking, man, this is freaking going to really happen. And when it did, I think I went out there with my hands in the air, and I was almost lost. You know, it was just an unbelievable feeling. I know that we had a couple team parties that night. I think I went right from the team parties to all the morning shows. You know, New York City at its best. And but it was a tremendous feeling. You're right. It was just another cool moment to go along with the career I had.
Yeah, a trip down the Canyon of Heroes too, which I know had to be equally as memorable.
That ticker tape parade was awesome.
Yes, it was. Fast forward to the next year, 13-8, 3.70. You finished second in Cy Young voting that year. Some guy named Pedro Martinez. I don't know whatever happened to him.
Yeah, they gave him one. Anybody can win one. They must have gave him one.
Yeah, they must have gave him. So you go into it, and that was a tougher playoffs because at this time the Yankees, people forget, 3-15 in September. It was not an easy road to the playoffs. The Yankees had a lot of injuries that year. Oakland pushed you guys to the limit. They were on the come up at that time. Seattle pushed you guys to the limit. Yeah, but then there was that start in Game 4 where people. Let's set the context again. That lineup in 2000 for Seattle. A-Rod's still there. It's just his last year with them, but he's still there. John Olerud, a heck of a hitter, and you faced him when he was with the Mets and with the Blue Jays. Ricky Henderson's there. A young Raul Ibanez is there. Mike Cameron. This is a good team, and all you did to them was 15 strikeouts and 1 hit over a complete game.
And was this 2000? This was 2000.
Game 4.
I believe Seattle had a boat. Didn't they have like 114 wins, something like that?
That was the next year.
The next year. Okay, so they were a good team, but you're right. That game, my boys, I don't look at my numbers a lot pay attention to them. I tell people that's what I did for 24 years, not who I am as a person, but I was locked into it. My boys remind me of that game all the time. They still think that's probably, even with the 20 strikeout games and a bunch of other really good games, playoffs or regular season, they say that's probably the best game that I've ever thrown. And it was electric. I was on, both fastballs were on. I had a nice wipeout slider and a devastating split that night. So it was, that was a fun game, man. Everything was clicking and it was good.
Oh, of course. And one thing I wanted to go back to talk about your catchers. So you spent a part of your 24-year career, he was catching you for the majority of those times with the Yankees. Jorge Posada was such a great game general behind the plate. So intense, had the same fire. He would have been a heck of a pitcher in his own right if that's what he chose to pursue because of the intensity that he had. What was it like to have him catching you?
Jorge was great. I mean, people don't understand, again, when I talk about my catchers, how fond I am of my catchers. And he was probably the best two-way hitter and catcher, because he could hit. And it was great. We had a great working relationship. When I was a little lethargic on the mound, he would come out and get after me a little bit and get my emotions going to get going. And if he was moving around too much, I like guys to sit still and quiet and trust their hands. And, he had to catch, guys like El Duque, Colón, different guys that threw a lot of Frisbee curveballs. And I'd have to remind him, hey, my man, you're moving. He goes, am I moving? I go, yeah, sit still. And but yeah, he was a great game caller. He knew, he paid attention when I was calling games from the mound, and just fun to be around. He was a tremendous catcher. You guys don't understand. I throw an extremely heavy ball too, and by the second inning, if you saw his hand where it's black and blue, and then just think to try and go up there and hit barehanded. He didn't use batting gloves, and he was one of the best.
And it was such a well-rounded rotation at that time because this is pre-Mike Messina. Mike Messina only added more to it when he got there the next year. But you mentioned El Duque. You had Andy Pettit. You had David Cone. David Wells came back eventually in 2002. So in those days, the Yankee rotation, you had 3 to 4, some years 5 legit bona fide aces in one rotation.
Every bit. I remember doing a Sports Illustrated thing where Mr. Steinbrenner got in the middle of us, and there was 6 starters, and the caption was, "You never can have too much pitching." And we had guys in role play, out in the bullpen for 7th and 8th guys to get it to Mo. Everybody kind of knew what was going on. So, and then Joe Torre. I mean, Skip was great. We called him the Godfather. I think he got fired 5 times or something. I think when the Yankees signed him, the headline said "Clueless Joe" instead of "Shoeless Joe" or something like that. But what Joe did famously, he handled our person. He knew our personalities. He knew that I was pretty aggressive and locked in. But he knew our personalities, and what he did famously, he handled the media beautifully in New York. If they got a little below the belt, and we had stand-up guys. If we didn't play well or perform well, we pretty much told people, "Hey, we stunk it up tonight." And but if it got below the belt, he would clean that up. He had a wonderful bench coach, a baseball lifer. I don't think Zim ever cashed a check outside the game of baseball.
Mhm.
And then again, I very much enjoyed working, having a pitching coach, Mel Stoudemire. Mel was terrific.
Mhm. And that Yankee know-how back then from those days where guys were gamers, and even the guys you brought in, David Justice knew all about postseason play from all his years with the Braves. He blended in perfectly in 2000. It helped because that World Series with the Mets was tight. And I remember Derek Jeter saying, if we lose this World Series, I don't think I could leave my house. You didn't have to worry about that. You guys were able to win it in 5, and it came full circle. And it was a scare even down to the end. Piazza, when he first hit that ball off Mo in Game 5, looked like it was going to go out, but thankfully Bernie caught it, and you were a 2-time champion.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, somebody like Piazza is like a Jim Rice, a Carlos Delgado. When he hits the ball, it sounds like a 22 going off.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no way we could lose the Subway Series with Mr. Steinbrenner. Now we got Mr. Steinbrenner. We had him when he was a little more mellow. He wasn't the George Steinbrenner of the '70s, where you see him and Reggie going at it, or Billy Martin and Reggie. But I tell people, Mr. Steinbrenner, if you needed a player and he only had $5 in his pocket and that player cost 10, he was going to get him. And I can't tell you how many times before certain big games, I would be in the trainer's room doing my little 5-pound arm weights, getting my shoulder loose. And he'd roll in with his jacket and turtleneck. And he goes, "I brought you here for a reason." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." I love calling him boss, but I was always smiling at him, even in situations there was nothing funny. But he's looking at me, "What are you smiling at?" I go, "Just you, boss. I mean, it's great being here, And so just great, good, fond memories. I mean, there's just so much history. I tell people, new Yankee Stadium's cool. It's like going to a mall and there's a baseball stadium there. Old Yankee Stadium, we had ghosts running around that place. I mean, our comeback comeback wins that we had, it was crazy. But you're right. I thought I was an intense player until I ran into Paul O'Neill. And if you met Paul on the street, he's the sweetest guy. You hear him announcing games. He's the sweetest dude. During the game, I've not been around anybody that's more intense than Paul O'Neill. I'm just telling you right now. Yeah,
absolutely love him. Warrior.
Paulie was a warrior.
He was. There were many water coolers were relieved when he retired.
I was just going to say that. I stopped short of saying that, and it was it's a half hour ago. He struck out a half hour ago, and we'd be in the dugout. I'm sitting next to Zim. And all of a sudden, we hear the water cooler at the end of the dugout just getting wore out. And I was like, "Zim, he hit like a half hour ago, didn't he?" But some water coolers really took a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it was a team of gamers. I mean, look at the infield you had behind you for most of it. Brocious at third. We talked about Posada earlier. You had Jeter at short, Nabi at second, and later Soriano, and then Tino at first.
Yeah, a great infield. And somebody like Brocious, Scotty, laying the weeds, hitting 6th, 7th, 8th hole maybe. Mm-hmm. You forget about him. He could punt. He could hurt you.
And he did. Sure did, especially in 1998 against San Diego, and again in 2001 against Byung-Hyun Kim in Game 5. Now let's get to that year. Before we get to the emotional aftermath of 9/11, you start 20-1. This is perhaps one of the finest seasons of your career. And as you mentioned earlier, 9/11, before everything that happened that day happened, you were slated to pitch. The night before had been rained out, so this was a makeup game. And then 8:46, the world changes. So tell me where you were that day when you got the news of what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's always in the forefront of my mind. Like I said, I've done some stuff with the military guys. The late great who just passed a year ago, Toby Keith's a great friend. Toby puts his heart and soul into the military. Yeah, I mean, I was always trying to sleep in. You get back from a night game, so we did have a rain out. So I'm trying to sleep at least. I usually sleep until about 8 o'clock. Get up, get my body moving, doing things like that. My buddy that shares the same floor of our condo knocked on my door and said there's been a mishap at the World Trade Center plane. Now, outside my breakfast window on the 25th floor, we're not far from the World Trade, so we have a lookout deck. On top of that, they let us astroturf, and we can kind of barbecue and do stuff like that. The place let us do it. But outside my breakfast window, we'd all close to the Hudson, so we always saw like 4-seaters that would take guests on like a tour of the Statue of Liberty. So I thought maybe this is what happened. He goes, "No, it's much bigger than that." So anyway, we all hell broke loose. We know what happened. We saw the second building go down. We couldn't comprehend what was going on until the second one. Then the doorman came up and he knows. He said, "Rocket, you guys need to get out of here. They're shutting down bridges and everything." And the only way I was able to leave the city by vehicle with my buddy, and we were going to his place in Danbury, Connecticut, to just see what's going to happen next. And we knew we were going to be playing baseball or sports for a long time. And but the only reason I was able to get through some of the checkpoints is when I rolled my window down. The officers recognized me as New York Yankee, and they just said, "Get going, get out of here." And so once we resumed, what was it, 12, 15 days later? I'm not sure. You guys know better than I what it was, but I thought it was a couple of weeks. I end up not being able to fly. But everybody's panicking in Houston, by the way. My brothers and sisters, everybody's. So I end up taking my car, and all of us piled in the car, and we drove about 23 hours to Texas. And then once we got the call that I was going to pitch again, it was going to be in Comiskey Park against the White Sox. And what is usually a very tough environment to pitch in, especially as a New York Yankee. There were signs of love in New York and everything. I remember, putting on the NYPD hat to pitch in that. Looked to my left on the mound. We were doing all the ceremonies, the pregame ceremonies. Joe Torre's crying. I'm starting to tear up. Don Zimmer's crying. I mean, it was a tough deal. I ended up going down close to where I lived in New York. We had my jersey number. It was kind of ironic. It was Fire Station 22, and they lost, I think, 7 or 8 guys in the World Trade stuff. But you know what? What came of it, man, is probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Is that my agents went to high school with General Myers. General Myers was a 4-star general at the time. Mm-hmm. And he called my agents and asked them if I'd go to the Middle East to see some of our men and women. And said, absolutely. And we loaded up, went into the Pentagon, got our marching orders. We were over there, 7-8 days, probably saw about 14,000 of our men and women over there. I tell people I consider myself a huge team player. During that trip, I met the ultimate team players. I met Red Sox fans, Yankee fans, Blue Jays, Longhorn fans, Houston Astro fans. I had some gloves and baseballs I took over, and we played a little catch. I was trying to write my speech down, what I was going to say at each base that we went to, but it was an unbelievable experience. We asked Drew Carey, the comedian, to go over with us, but I had, like I said, my brother served in Vietnam, my oldest brother. He since has passed away, and I had 5 uncles that served. So I'm getting honored at the College Baseball Hall of Fame here next week up in Kansas. I'm going to make mention to the military people that will be there. So like you said, it was gut wrenching. All of our lives have changed since then, and but we'll never forget.
Absolutely. And that segues into, that run in October of 2001. Again, Oakland gave you guys fits again, but you came back. Derek Jeter's play in Game 3 turned the tide of that series. You came back. You pitched in Game 5. Yankees were able to get that win 4-3. And you gutted that one out because I know at that time your hamstring was bothering you, but you toughed it out. Went into the next round against Seattle. This was the year they won 116 games. Yankees made quick work of them in 5. And that brings us to that Game 3. So Schilling and Johnson had dominated games 1 and 2. The Yankees are down 2-0. First World Series game back in New York since then. President Bush throws out the first pitch, so security's on high alert.
Some good memories right here.
And I think this was, besides Seattle, perhaps the finest game you pitched as a Yankee. You went out there, you gave 7 innings when the team needed it. You thrived under pressure, and I think this was your finest display.
I appreciate that. That game was emotional. We're friends with the Bush family here in Houston. 41 more than 43, even though 43 throughout the pitch. Mm-hmm. I have a horseshoe pit in my backyard because of 41. That game was I got caught off guard a little bit because I didn't realize that Mr. Steinbrenner was bringing back about 300 men and women, fire, police officers, first responders. They were all in the tunnel, and Yankee Stadium's kind of like the locker room's like a little dungeon, low ceiling. And I never like to warm up in front of the fans. I like to come out at Yankee Stadium. You come out of the locker room, go to the right about 100 yards, and our weight facilities there. So I would get on the treadmill and do my work, do my cup work, get super loose before I went out to play long toss. eventually get to the bullpen and do my warm-up session. Well, when I busted through the clubhouse door to go down to there, these people were all lining the hallway, and they were already getting really emotional. People were still tearing up, and we were seeing people, and I just started hugging people, and you don't have words because they've lost family members, and you could just see the stress in their eyes. And then when you pop out there in your uniform, it kind of gives them a little bit of a break and takes them away from things. But anyway, I remember, and you guys have seen this probably on a web page or some video somewhere that they did it. When President Bush came in, when 43 came in, I said, first of all, we have a New York Yankees logo in the middle of the locker room. It's on the carpet. You don't walk over it. You walk around it. This is the first thing that's done. I know you're the president, but you still can't walk across the interlocking NY. And the Secret Service guys with him, and he's like, he looked at him, Rocket. He goes, I need is there anywhere I can throw? Because he's putting a bulletproof vest on. He had a bulletproof vest on underneath that jacket he had on.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Mr. President, if you go out, you go about 200 yards to the right. It's our hitting cages underneath the stadium. Posada and Jeter be down there, so you probably see down there. You can go down there. There's mounds. You can warm up and practice whatever you need to do, which I loved because he wanted to look great when he went out there on the main mound in front of the world. It just wasn't the stadium in the 58,000, whatever it was at the Yankee Stadium. And the backstory, which I got later, and again, you guys may have heard it or seen it. He got down there, do his 8 or 10 warm-up pitches, and there's Derek. He's got, obviously, the president got cameras and film running. And to make small talk, he looked at Derek and said, Derek, he goes, any pointers for me tonight? Derek goes, well, Mr. President, he goes, you can't throw from the grass. Can't throw from there. You got to get up by the mound and throw it full distance. You know where Rocket's going to be. You got to throw full distance. He goes, okay, no problem. I got that. And he goes, what else? Derek goes, well, Mr. President, he goes, if you bounce it, you're in New York, they will boo you. And he goes, okay, now I'm nervous. So fast forward, I was out in the bullpen with Mel Stoudemire warming up. Here comes the president right out of the dugout. And I had the best view you could have because I had the whole silhouette, the half shell of Yankee Stadium. I'm in the bullpen looking up. I can see about 6 or 8 snipers on top of the stadium. You can see the little dark silhouette of a sniper. And Mel goes, everything all right? Because I stopped warming up. I said, turn around. I want to watch this. This whole stadium's going to light up like a Christmas tree. And President Bush wound up through a perfect strike to Todd Green. I think Todd was catching him that night.
Todd Green.
And perfect strike to him. And the place lit up like crazy. And it was electric. I mean, I got goosebumps on that. Fast forward to the game and the game situation, Skip, Joe Torre would always pitch me in a certain game where he might be a swing game. Well, this game 3 is a swing game. And it was a game that I could not go out there and have a hiccup because we're done if we lose game 3. And so I knew that there was no way I could go out and give up runs early in that game and get us behind. And so a little bit of stress there, but thank goodness my arm felt well. I was in the strike zone. A lot of my stuff was electric, and we won that game to get back in the series.
Yeah, and it was credit to Brian Anderson too. Brian Anderson threw a great game for Arizona that night. He went toe to toe, but you know what? You took on a tough Arizona lineup that had the likes of Luis Gonzalez off a career year, Craig Counsell, very good hitter, Steve Finley, another underrated hitter who contributed a lot. So definitely not an easy lineup to face.
Mark great contact guys, yeah. No, great contact guys who usually pose problems for me.
Yep. But not that night, thankfully. So, I will ask, obviously, of course, Arizona was able to win the World Series ultimately. They earned it. It was a tough loss, but you know what? Credit to Arizona. They were a great team in their own right in retrospect. Games 4 and 5, though. You went from being on the mound for one of those games to witnessing feats that we've never seen before in back-to-back nights and probably won't see for a long time. Tito and Brocious back-to-back nights. What was that like to see in the dugout?
Well, let me just tell you, those 2 games, I'm glad you brought them up because I've never heard the stadium louder. And if you lived a mile away from there, you thought an earthquake was happening. I thought the stadium was going to fall down. The people in the upper deck jumping up and down. I'm like, this is crazy. And Andy, the lefty, was standing next to me, and I'm like, okay, you got to win games. Just get the ball to me for game 7. We were going around and around, and a big homer, and it was those 2 games were again. I've never heard the stadium louder.
Yeah, two great wins, of course. 2002, Yankees won 103 games. The Angels just went on the run of a lifetime that October. But 2003, despite the hiccup the previous year, back in the World Series, deep into the playoffs again, another 100-plus win year. You win your 300th game that year. Now, let's stop on that for a second before I get to the playoffs. At that point, 19 years in the majors, a feat that very few have achieved. And then finally, you're added to that list. So when that final out was made, much like I asked you earlier about winning the World Series for the first time in 99, what was that like where you looked around the stadium and realized, oh my God, I've won 300 games?
Yeah, it was funny. My friends were getting on me to get it done because they were tired of chasing me around the country because I think it was on try number 3, but it was fate to get it. I mean, if I was going to get it, I'd get it at historic Yankee Stadium. I think Seaver got his 300th at Yankee Stadium.
He did.
I think he was a White Sox, wasn't he?
He was.
So that's pretty cool in its own right. But yeah, so the first thing that I realized at the time was getting my 4,000 strikeout in the same game, and Jorge coming out to the mound for that, and then to be able to turn the ball over to Mo again and realize you're going to get your 300th win, which is obviously going to be rare, and I think it's even more rare now with the guys going 4 or 5 innings. So yeah, that was special to get it in the pinstripes at Yankee Stadium. It was heaven sent.
And then, of course, we get to the playoffs. You go through the Twins in 4 games. Twins had some good teams back then, but the Yankees always had their number. And then that war with the Red Sox. Now, to set the stage, the Red Sox, it's not like they were coming out of nowhere. 2002, they had won 93 games. They were a good team in 2002. They came back again. I think they won about 95 games in 03. That's David Ortiz's first year in Boston. Pedro still in the prime of his career. So you knew this series was going to be a dogfight. That really intensified in game 3 and then later on in game 7. But game 3, Fenway Park very well. You pitched a majority of your career for the Sox and obviously a majority of your career in the AL East. But just with everything that went down that day and the intensity, that series was on overdrive to begin with. How much more so after a game like that?
Yeah, you're right. Good war. It was on overdrive for sure. It was a war. And you got to understand when I got traded to the Yankees and then the Red Sox were brutal. They changed ownership and they got very competitive again, and that made the rivalry great again. Still probably wasn't as nasty as the 75, 77, whatever.
No.
But it was you're right. It got intense quick. And it's again it's the fans are the fans. I mean, we love them. I mean, I could be on the street and the Red Sox fan when I was a Yankee, they could be wearing me out a thing and they're coming up wanting a photo or an autograph. So you get it. They're fanatics. And but that's great because that's what we're supposed to do as athletes. We like to stroke the emotions of people, and I love it that they're coming to watch us perform. And yeah, game 3. What was you saying? Game 3 was that the Don Zimmer and Pedro?
It was, yeah. That was.
Yeah, we saw a ball-headed guy go flying. I'm standing on the mound with Jeet, and we saw a ball-headed man go flying. We thought David Wells was over there getting his butt kicked for a minute, And we look up and it's Zim, and Zim's got a fire in his belly. I love that man, and we miss him, man. Like I said, a baseball lifer, but he had enough of Pedro talking smack to the dugout, and next thing you know, he was out there. But yeah, Pedro, I think, hit Kareem Garcia in the back or somewhere or over him. And normally guys don't when I'm pitching, they don't really get around me too much. But when they come sit next to you, I know something's up, and I'm saying, "What's up? You got a problem with this guy?" And they go, "Yeah, I got a problem with him." And so I kind of had the magic bullet. I mean, it was like 3rd or 4th inning, early in the game, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think Manny, like I said on a couple of the shows I did, Manny was going to eat one, and he knew it. And he was the hitter at the time. I wound up to a good hard fastball, probably be a strike now with the strike zones now, and he went crazy. So we kind of exchanged some verbal words, and then Pedro did the ole on Zim, and it just went to another level. So you just really got to, in those kind of situations, you got to focus and bring your focus up. So crazy game, crazy series for sure.
Yeah, and you did. Yankees were able to get the win in that one, 4-2. Jeter hit a big home run in that one. But yeah, it got nasty. Fast forward to game 7. Talk about the full depth of the emotional spectrum. I think you felt it because down early, you leave, it's 4-0. I know you weren't feeling good coming off the mound. You must have felt great by the 8th inning when they rallied back, and even greater when Aaron Boone sent it out in the 11th. So just again, you heard Yankee Stadium loud. Yeah. Pretty loud that night in 2000.
Yeah, it was. I gave up I gave up some runs early on breaking balls. I hung a split, which is really a BP fastball, and I think the other one was a breaking ball, was a slider. So I should have trusted my fastball a little more that night. But when I went in to change and ice a little bit, I went back in and got on a stationary bike, and I was trying to get some frustration out. And I really couldn't hear the announcing that was going on, but I could hear all of a sudden the stadium, it changed. I could hear people like standing up out of their seats, jumping up and down. So I knew something was happening. And so by the time, and then once you realize we were making a comeback, not being superstitious, I don't want to move. So next thing you know, I'm in a sauna where I pushed a stationary bike and I'm pedaling. I'm going to drop about 35 pounds if I keep pedaling this bike in the sauna. And I came out, switched shirts, and ended up going down in time to see Booney hit the home run. But yeah, that very fortunate. The guys, I don't know. I can visualize when I'm thinking about it. A hit that Posada, he didn't hit it well, but it fell in. 2 runs scored, and I think it's I don't know that I've ever seen that emotional Jorge Posada at second base, and which kind of correlates back to the other game where Pedro and Georgie were, Pedro was pointing like I was going to hit him in the head or something, and they were exchanging words. They were pretty intense after each other. So I'm pretty sure that Georgie was happy to get that clutch hit. They obviously, the deal was they were griping about leaving Pedro in too long. That Grady Little left him in. I think you want to go with Pedro Martinez if he says he's fine, as long as you can.
Right. I mean, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I always felt bad for Grady for that, because who can blame him? It's Pedro Martinez. You're going to leave him in.
That's right.
And ultimately, Yankees rallied, scored those 3 runs, went to the World Series. This is an interesting point in your career that I wanted to get to. World Series, Florida wins it in 6. You came back. Originally, people thought that was your last year. You came back, which was fine, but you had to take Andy Pettitte away from us, so I'm a little mad at you about that. But that's okay. We forgive you. I will say, I wanted to ask you this. Had the Yankees won it in 03, would that have affected your decision to retire ultimately and stay retired, or did you just have the itch regardless to want to keep going?
I was good. I was done. I remember throwing the first pitch in Florida. The place lit up. I remember giving up some runs early to a young Cabrera, and I was like, as he was rounding the base, I was like, there's no way I'm going out like this. I remember coming in the dugout and telling the guys, that's it. If you guys can rally back, they're not getting any more runs. And so after I think I ended up going 6 or 7. I went to Joe Torre's office and just had a little moment, knowing that could have been it. I knew I was going to have to be available out of the bullpen, which I was out in the bullpen for the other games. And then after it was over, I was good. I was content with shutting it down. And just the opposite happened. And Andy Pettitte said something after he signed with the Astros. This is Andy's hometown too, in Houston. Mm-hmm. And he made a comment. And then next thing I know, I got about 80 fans outside my gate. And then I get another call from a rock radio station. I did some morning shows with them, baseball programs with them, and they're crazy. They got word that's when the new Hummers came out, the big Hummers, and there was a white one that my wife wanted. And next thing you know, the rock and roll station purchases the Hummer, puts it outside the gate, said it's your wife's car if you come pitch for the Astros. So you know what she said? She said, start running and throwing. You're coming back. So, but I was like, I was a little worried because, I'm in my 40s, and to try and be a little bit, it was, I don't want to say it was easier. It was different pitching in the National League because the first couple guys are not going to hurt you. The 7th, 8th hitter is not going to hurt you. And then you face a pitcher. So I was fortunate. I ended up winning a Cy Young down here in my hometown team. So that was a joy. The only other time I pitched here was my first All-Star game was in the Astrodome. And I got to pitch at home, sleep in my own bed. And it was cool playing and sleeping at your own house and driving 20 minutes to work. I was on 1-year deals. I said after that 04 season, I said, I'm done. They said, Drake McClain was the owner. Drake said, I got to have you back. Came back for that, and we go to the World Series in 05, which is fun. And it was a joy for me, too, because guys I watched, Bagwell, who got traded for Larry Anderson way back when I was a Red Sox. Baggy was a Red Sox. Yeah, he got traded and playing with Biggio, Lance Bergman. Of course, Andy was down there. Andy's, Randy was a great pitcher. And so it was, and then we joined Roy Oswalt. So there was 3 of us. We had Oswalt and Pettitte and myself, and I was the senior of the group, but it was a lot. We flipped the town at that time was a football town here in Houston to a baseball town. I mean, We were sold out every night. It was incredible at Minute Maid Park to see the fans that turned out for us.
Oh, those were some great teams. And producer Victor and I were talking about it before you signed on. People forget, and I miss this rivalry because it's one of the first that I remember. Astros Cardinals in 04, 05. You guys had some wars with them. Those were some
Yeah,
great series.
great. You're dead right, man. That was, we got after Pujols and those guys. They were good, and we had some great battles. Carlos Beltran had a playoff for the ages.
Yes, he did.
Couldn't get him out, and we just had some great battles. Like I said, when you can run Pettit and Oswald out there, and fire me in the mix when I was right, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. One thing I did want to ask you about, you had some wars with the Braves in those years too. Now, producer Victor, he's a Braves fan. We'll forgive him. He's a diehard Braves fan. 2005, that game 4 that went 18 innings, you pitched in that game in relief.
There's one. That's a top 5 game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. No, I wasn't even. I remember we had there was no batting practice on the field because they had painted the playoff logo, repainted it, so nobody was going to hit. They were doing all their work in the cages. It was a late report time. Pettit was supposed to pitch. If we don't win the game, Pettit's supposed to pitch in Atlanta the next day. My number 3 had a playoff football game, so I did that. I got to the stadium. I hadn't ate all day, and I remember getting there trying to find something to eat. They didn't have any spread or anything out. And I don't wear my jersey or my spikes in between starts. They lock them up because my jersey started getting stolen and my stuff started getting stolen. People doing a grab and whatever. So they would lock my stuff up. And we start going through this game, and it starts to get a little crazy. And Phil Gardner, our manager, scrap iron was running out of players. And he thought if somebody got on one of the pitchers that, I might go up and bunt or pinch bunt. But anyway, I'm standing next to him, got my tennis shoes on. He goes, "Hey, go get your spikes on. You got your jersey on underneath that jacket?" I said, "No, Skip, they lock it up." He goes, why don't you go get it? And I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm not kidding. Go get it." So I go down, I put my spikes and stuff on. They go, then the game changes again. Now it's getting deepening. I think Ausmus hit a home run off the chalk line out there in center or something to tie the game up. And now Hickey's like, "Hey," and I look around and Pettit's nowhere to be found. I go, "Where's Pettit at?" They go, "Well, that's what we're going to tell you. You might be pitching. If this thing doesn't work out, you might be pitching tomorrow on short rest in Atlanta because Andy's got the flu, can't take his head off the pillow. He's sick." They go, "How does your arm feel?" I go, "Well, I haven't touched a baseball. I just got here." I said, "I'm actually looking for something to eat. I'm starving." And I said, "Well, let me go find out." So my family's up in the box, and I called my oldest one who got drafted by the Astros, and he can catch. So I asked Kobe. I got on the phone. Had him call the suite. I said, "Tell Kobe to come down the back of the stairs of the stadium, meet me in the far back hitting cages. I got to throw." So Kobe's like, "Are you really, Dad?" So he comes down. I start playing catch with him, and he's a hitter. So I throw about 20 pitches, about half speed. And I go, "Yeah, I think I'm fine if I got to pitch tomorrow." And he goes, "Really? You're going to pitch tomorrow?" And he goes, "Hey, there's a bat right here." And it was like Lance Berkman's bat. And Kobe's like, "Dad, throw me like 10 pitches, right? I want to hit. This would be fun for me to hit here in your cage. This is the first time doing it." So I start throwing to him without realizing it. Next thing you know, he and I are in a father-son match. He hit a couple balls really good and flipped the bat on me in the cage. I go, "No, get back in there." I start winding up. Excuse me, I'm throwing gas. I'm throwing 90, 92, 93 to him, and I'm trying to break. And I finally break the bat. That's the only thing that stopped it. But I realized I'm sweating like crazy now. I just threw an entire game. I threw like 90 pitches. And I'm like, I don't know if I can even pitch tomorrow right now. I got a heartbeat in the back of my shoulder. I just might have messed this up. I go through the weight room. The strength guy sees me, and I'm sweating. He goes, "Where the heck have you been?" I go, "Oh, I was just stretching my arm out in the cage." I get down there and pitching coach sees me. I got sweat coming down my hair. He goes, "Where have you been? You been on a treadmill?" And I go, "No, I was in the back. I was just stretching and throwing a little bit." I didn't want to tell him I just threw a 90 pitch game, right? Boom, boom, boom. Game's tied up. Scrap iron. My manager looks at me and goes, "Can you, if I pinch bunt you, I've only got 2 pitchers in the bullpen. Wheeler's out there, and I think Lidge." He goes, "Can you? We might need you on the mound today, right now." And I'm like, I don't want to tell him what I just did. I just threw an entire game. I'm 40. I don't know. I'm 44 years old, whatever I am at the time. I said, all right, I'm going to get my cleats on. I'll go to the bullpen. Well, I went underneath the stadium. I didn't want to walk across the field with fans and ESPN broadcasting game, whatever. So I come in through the bullpen, and some people see me. I sneak in there, and I'm looking around. And I think Wheeler is the last one. Now I'm talking to the bullpen coach. He goes, I don't know what I'm doing. It's inning. Let's see, I pitched the 16, 17, 18. I pitched 3 innings. So it was about the 13th to 14th inning. Now I tell our guy down there, I go, man, if I'm getting in this game, I got to eat something. So I call down and tell the bullpen kid, the guy on the dugout kid, bat boy, said, run me out a Powerade and 2 bananas. Because I was looking for the bag of stuff that the guys take out there. They take candy and gum and food. The relievers take, one guy, the rookie, takes the pink backpack or whatever, and it's full of stuff. I go, where's that bag at? And he goes, oh, that's gone. And by the 3rd inning, they throw what's left over into the stands to the fans. So here comes the kid. He's running me out. I'm looking at the lineup on the board to where this could possibly happen. The pitcher spot's coming up, and it's the 15th inning. And now the bullpen coach is watching me throw, and I'm already loose. I don't even have to warm up, but I got the catcher down there, and I throw like 8 pitches about 80 miles an hour, and I go, I'm good. And the bullpen coach has no idea what just happened, that I threw a full game underneath the stadium an hour ago. And he's calling the dugout saying, hey, don't bring Rocket in. There's no way. He's not going to get anybody out. He has nothing on his fastball. And so I sit down, look at the board. I see that my spot will come up. And Wheeler, our relief guys, never bunt. They're relief guys. Somebody pinch hits for them, whatever. So I get the bananas down, drink that, and I tell the bullpen coach, I said, call Gar that, hey, if my slot comes up, I've been bunting all year. Tell him to pinch hit me now if he's going to bring me a game, and I'll bunt. He calls down. Gar said, there's a mess. Everybody's panicking. We're running out of players. His scorecard looks like a Crayola, sign. And he goes, no, tell him just to worry about getting ready to pitch. Hangs up. Not 30 seconds later, he goes, no, send him in here. He's going to bunt. We're going to pinch bunt him. I go, okay, that's what I figured. So I go down there. I think I'm in the game, and I pinch bunt. And then I end up 3 innings. If Chris Burke doesn't come up and hit that home run, we're probably still playing that game. The game was crazy. And the boys love it for the backstory. Come to find out, I get called in the manager's office. I go, we won. We're going to the next round. And the pitching coach is in there. The owner's in there. 2 other guys. They go, can you please tell us what happened when you were sweating? I go, yeah, I threw a full game. I didn't want to tell you all that I'm spent, that I can't go to the bullpen and pitch. So, but it was, my boys, everybody, all my buddies, they love that story. I know it was a long story, but it was a good one.
It's worth it. I'm glad you relived it.
It was a good one.
That's one of the best playoff games of the 21st century. So, listen, and you were a big part of it. So I'm glad you relived it. It sure was. 2006, of course, your last year in Houston. And it seemed like you were done at that point, but Andy comes back to New York. Early on in the season, the Yankees got a lot of injuries to their rotation, so they're struggling. They need help. And as you infamously said from the press box, they went and got me out of Texas. So what was George's pitch to get you back to the Bronx for one more go-round? Yeah,
it was mainly Cash. I have a great relationship with Cash. Love that man. All he goes through, ups and downs, and being threatened to be fired 6 times during the season, I'm in my garage. I think it's mid-April, and Cash always wants me in the rotation, but like I said, I'm a pretty cut up guy and fun guy in the locker room to keep everybody on a easy, happy note. But I'm in the garage, and Deb comes out. The phone rang. She goes, Joe Torre and Brian Cashman are on the phone. Want to talk to you? I go, what? She goes, yeah. I go, you sure? So she goes, yeah, I know their voice, and I talked to them. They've already said their pleasantries to me. I go, what's the call about? She goes, they didn't tell me. And I said, well, I just watched them get swept by like Cleveland or lose a series in Cleveland, so it must have been going too well. So I get on the phone, and the skipper, Joe Torre, Joe's like, Rocket, how you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, hey, Skip. It was kind of like loose and light, and real background voice, serious Cashman. How long will it take you to get ready? What are you talking about, Cash? He goes, I want you in my 4th or 5th hole on the mound, but I need you in the locker room. Get everybody loosened up. We're not. I said, are you guys kidding me? He goes, how long would it take you to get ready? And I go, I'm going to need just a couple of days to give you yes or no. I took off to a place that's got a 3-mile running track here close to the house. I got to go off, feel how my legs are. I'm 45 years old. So that was pretty nerve wracking. Once I got ready and we agreed to do it, they said, hey, we're going to send a plane to take you to Tampa. And I said, great, because I need to run and throw down there and get this thing started, see where I'm at. And then Cash said, but first the plane's going to bring you to New York. We're going to announce it during the game. I said, no, I'm not doing that. He goes, no, we're doing it. And he goes, nobody knows. And like they told me, once they told me that this was going to happen, they said, do not tell any of the players. Don't tell anybody. You and your wife only. Don't even tell your kids. And so we didn't tell anybody until you saw it. I went up there and Susan Waldman saw me in the George's box and went crazy. And I had no idea what I was going to say. What I said was, right off the top of my head when I went in there. I said my piece. I waved to the guys in the dugout. I didn't even go down the locker room after the game. Went back to the parking lot. They had my car running, took me to the airport, and I was jogging about 3 hours later around the minor league fields there in Tampa and the football stadium, Tampa Bay Bucks football stadium, where I was doing my distance running.
You did a great job that final year, 7-6, 4.30 ERA. So you were definitely very serviceable to the Yankees. They turned it around, able to make the playoffs that year. Didn't go well against Cleveland, unfortunately, but nevertheless, you pitched in Game 3. I know your hamstring was bothering you around this time as well, but the Yankees were able to rally and win that game. So at the end of that year, walking off the mound for what turned out to be the final time, I imagine by this point you were truly done. You felt that there was nothing left.
Yeah, I could tell my body and not, I couldn't do the work. I have a saying and it holds true. My only day off is the day I pitch. And the work I was doing in between, and I was having to cut everything in half, distance running, my cuff work, any kind of lifting and all that. And my body just was not responding and getting ready to pitch on every, fourth day.
Yeah, totally sensible. A couple more questions for you before we reach the conclusion. Since then, you've kept busy, of course. You're just as busy in retirement as you were when you were playing. I've seen you make a few appearances in documentaries and podcasts, including this one. You got a son in the majors now. Struck out Shohei Ohtani not too long ago, which you're very proud of. So
put us in a atmosphere record book.
Exactly.
Talk about all-time father-son strikeout leaders now.
Exactly. There you go. But
and he struck out a big one. I mean, he struck out Ohtani. That's pretty good in itself, right?
Right. This generation
throwing 60 miles an hour. I was doing it all wrong. I think I could go through 60 right now.
Well, there you go. Saddle up. The Yankees could use you. So
saddle up.
And indeed. So when you look back on your career, I mean, I imagine there's so many great moments that we've talked about in the last hour and change. If you had to define it in a sentence or two, how would you define it?
It feels like it's gone by in a blur when we did it. And I just think about the wonderful people I met, the backstories, meeting the presidents, getting the opportunity to go to the Oval Office, getting the opportunity to play Augusta National because of the career the career I had. So, but it still holds true with my teammates and my friends that I played at college with or whatever. It's fun hearing their stories because they get to see me when I'm not intense and locked in or behind that glove, locked in behind that glove, doing my thing, trying to making the living that I was able to make. So just feel very blessed. It's fun now working with guys. I do work with the Astros. Like I said, I'm going to Yankee spring training. I'll visit with those guys. When one of these guys asks a pointed question, I try and give them a pointed answer. And like you said, my youngest one's with the Phillies, so I'll get to go watch him. He's doing something pinch hitting, and he's like a hybrid now. He can play 2, 3, 4 positions. So, but all my boys played. They're all very, very good at what they did. They took a lot of pride in it. And, like I said, I think my 2 younger ones graduated with honors from the business school. I tell them it's great they played professionally, but as a dad, I'm more, I love it that they graduated and with honors. Now I'm Poppy Rocket. I got the 8-year-old twin grandboys, and they're running me around like a farm animal. So they keep me busy. Like my grandmother said too, famously, there'll be no grass growing underneath your feet. So I got the foundation. We just celebrated 30 years. We help at-risk children, underprivileged kids. So it's fun seeing that. And but yeah, I got a lot of cool people at my foundation that push me out there, and for me, they're the real heroes because people like Diana, who you guys met, they do all the work.
Yeah, and thank you to Diana for helping set this up. She was a big part of the reason why three of us are having this conversation right now. That brings us into the concluding segment. It'll be the rapid fire, 5 hit and run questions from me, 5 hit and run answers from you. You could say pass if an answer doesn't come to the top of your mind. The first one is you play with a lot of funny guys. Who would you say was the funniest teammate you ever had?
Well, I would say probably David Wells. Boomer's pretty funny. I mean, he's got some stories to back it up. I think that's what makes him pretty funny.
Yeah, threw a perfect game, slightly inebriated, which may be the greatest accomplishment anybody's ever done in the sport. Second, you faced a lot of tough hitters. Who was the hitter you dreaded seeing coming into the batter box the most?
I didn't have a problem with facing anybody. The contact guys were difficult for me, but I'll just say this: the main guy I wanted to get to the big leagues fast to face was Reggie Jackson, and I got to face Reggie and when he was a California Angel, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. Third, you can't say Yankee Stadium, you can't say Fenway, and you can't say Minute Maid. Favorite stadium to pitch in?
Easy. It beats them all. Anaheim.
Okay.
Yeah, the weather's unbelievable. Great golf courses out there when you're not pitching, by the way. The infield, outfield grass was Augusta-like. I tease people that you could throw your turkey sandwich in the outfield grass and pick it up and eat it. It's perfect. And also, I think over the years, like they've been voted ballpark food like top 1 or 2 every year in ballpark food and fan experience.
I got to get out there.
Yep.
Fourth, second to last question, the rapid fire. Fourth question of the 5. I don't know if you were a pregame meal kind of guy, but if so, favorite pregame meal to have?
Pasta and chicken, no doubt about it. Back when they had the eat to win kind of theory. And I would only eat, like I said, I'd have maybe a protein shake early in early morning when I was waking up. When I would shower, I'd go through the lineup in my mind, and then I'd eat about 2:00, and that would be burnt pretty good. And then I'd have a couple of bananas and some kind of power drink during the game to get me through the game.
There you go. Fifth and finally, across all sports, not just baseball, a young athlete just coming into the league, there's a lot of doors opening for them, especially financially. Based off your experiences, 24 years in the bigs, what advice would you give them?
It takes no talent to hustle. You don't have to have any talent to hustle. And, when you ask me that question, I think about we have a children's wing at Memorial Herman here in Houston. Did it up real nice for the moms to try and bring some ease to when they have all their kids there. I tell guys when I see them hit a ball and loaf down to first base, all you have to do is picture somebody like Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter hit a swinging bunt to the pitcher, and he's breaking the tape going through first base. There's chalk coming off the bottom of his shoes. I tell guys, I have 2 kids down there. One of them's missing a hand, one's missing a foot. They would nothing more love to take a full swing in the batter's box and hit a dribbler and be able to run down to first base. They're never going to get that opportunity. So don't take it for granted, and it takes zero talent to hustle.
Love it. It's a good way to end. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you making the time. Stick around. We'll talk off air. You guys will hear this, of course, sometime in the summer. We're loading shows into the vault. I was informed that for those of you that are keeping track, Fire Academy down here in New Haven, Connecticut will start February 18th for yours truly. So in the meantime, we'll keep throwing shows into the vault. I'll go to the Academy, hopefully. And once we finish that up and I'm on my schedule, we'll release these episodes accordingly. But thank you very much to producer Victor on the 1s and 2s who did a great job. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, we'll talk off air, Roger. On behalf of producer Victor and the Rocket, Roger Clemens, I'm Mike Colón, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.